Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. I'm here with my friend and trusted producer, Max Kerman. We're also here with our pop culture aficionado, Shane Christian Cunningham. And on the dials is intern Erica, you're crushing that pizza right now.
I'm starving. I'm so sorry.
No, listen, Erica brought a full pizza from Longo's to this recording. We're going to put a picture on the Instagram. Yeah,
it's so good, Longo's pizza.
Manager Ash sorted us out with some drinks here.
Blue Lobster.
Yeah, my brother, Greg Veerman, is just hanging out. He didn't want to jump on a mic this time, but if he has any thoughts, Max, he's closest to you, so you'll hand your mic over.
Yep, that's what I'll do.
A couple orders of business. Guys, The Pedestal. It's a podcast that Shane and I do with our friend and Mensa member, Jonathan Popoulos. Like we say, there is an episode that goes up on our feed every week. This past week, the episode Big Fish just went up, and that was on my personal pedestal because this season, in season 2, we do this thing where Shane had a personal pedestal movie, I had a personal pedestal movie, John Popoulos had a personal pedestal movie. We go on, we revisit it, something that mattered to us when we were younger. So it's a little twist on this season. Go over, check out our feed, leave a comment. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Shane's grabbing another slice of this pizza right now.
So, Erica, you made the wise move of picking up pizza. And after work, you could have said, I'm just going to grab myself a quick slice of pizza. But you didn't do that. Mm-hmm. You got a full large pizza. You paid $12, and we don't pay you anything. So that's a lot of money.
Let's give her $12 back for the pizza.
Yeah, we might do that. But you made this decision, and I think we've talked about this before. When it comes to your workplace, if you ball out a little bit, it goes miles in terms of like the goodwill you are creating for yourself.
Mike brought in Timbits the other day.
It's so good. And so we were in Lethbridge on Thursday and Friday. The Arkell's had a gig. And there's a tour manager named Eric that we've started to work with recently. And we all really like Eric. He's an awesome guy. 4 of us went out for dinner. Mike D, our sax guy, Dennis, Eric, and I. And then all of a sudden, we all ordered. I wasn't listening to what anybody else ordered. And then all of a sudden, nachos showed up for the table. I said, who ordered these nachos? And then Eric goes, oh, no, I just got them for the table, for us. I was like, Eric, I fucking love you. That shit goes so far. So anyway, this is advice to any young person out there.
You've talked about this before.
Yeah, but I think it cannot be said enough times.
Do you think Eric, the tour manager, listens to the pod and did that as a way to your heart?
Maybe. That would make him an incredible tour manager.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
You know what, actually, speaking of Dennis, our saxophone player.
Right.
He was listening to the podcast, and he had just started to listen to the last episode, and he said, "Oh, I heard you. I was listening to your podcast. I heard you starting to complain about the Go Bus trip you were on at the beginning of the last episode."
Wow.
And then I was like, "Oh, have you listened to the whole thing yet?" He's like, "Oh, I haven't gotten around to the end of it." And then I thought, Dennis is Jamaican, and the last episode heavily features Jamaica, and you do some Jamaican accents. So I meant to ask him if any of that kind of came off as offensive. Not that I don't think he'd find it offensive, but I meant to ask him about that, and I haven't done that yet. So I'll check in with you next week.
I'm just glad that people are listening to the podcast, man.
It's great. We got a great response from Aaron Goldstein, my old music making pal, college buddy of Greg Veerman's actually, and he's been listening. He had a lot to contribute when it comes to poops and farts.
Shane's story about his harrowing vacation to Jamaica. People were talking about it. It really resonated with people. Well, it was it's a fucking hilarious story and was wild listening to it in real time. But after the episode went up, I immediately texted my wife, Danica, who doesn't regularly listen to the pod anymore, not because she doesn't support her husband, but because she, maybe there's a bit of that. But basically, when we first started doing Freedoms, like more frequently, not a guest, she listened to them and she would give me notes. And she said that I was becoming a little bit of a bitch when she would give me notes. So she's like, in order so that we don't have where I would like, it's not that she'd give me a note and I'd be like, well, this is why we do it that way. She's like, sure. I can't even have these conversations. She's like, just enjoy doing your podcast. And I'm like, thank you, honey. Anyway, I messaged her and I said, you need to listen to this story. Jump in at like the 32-minute mark with Shane and Alex's trip to Jamaica, because obviously Alex and Shane are friends. So anyway, it was wild. She was like, this is the craziest story I've ever heard. I feel so bad for Alex.
What about me? I'm the victim there.
Well,
like I am, though.
100%. But I think because she got caught up in this thing and that she had a lot of empathy for how someone would feel bad in that situation. You know,
our friend John Popoulos messaged me.
Oh.
He does Mensa member. He's 6'5". He's in great shape. Also, he does the
quarter
pedestal
Jewish
with us.
Yeah, he can make his pecs move.
But he was like, Shane, I'm so mad. I'm livid, and I'm not even you. He's like, what Alex did is inexcusable. Which I think I agreed with him. Yeah.
Here's a question, and this is for both of you because you're both great storytellers. Like when I'm having a conversation, I don't really think too far in advance, and sometimes it works out. Oftentimes it doesn't work out when I'm telling a story. But you guys know how to kind of weave a tale, and I'm wondering how much time did you think about the beats that you wanted? Because I only bring this up because we were at a wedding on Saturday, Lauren and I, and we were talking about the wedding speeches. We love a good wedding speech, and she was saying how your wedding speech is one of her favorites of all time. And I said, well, that's because he's a master storyteller and he knows he's studied comedy for years and he knows what he's doing. And she said, no, it's just because he was really emotional. I was like, yeah, well, he was emotional, but he also knows what he's doing. He's a fucking professional. So my question for you is, like, with that Jamaica story in particular, you have notes out. Have you ordered it out to like how you want to do it?
To be honest, I totally fucked it up. I was kicking myself.
Really?
All the way home there was...
Well, when we were walking, you even said, you were like, I missed the piece.
Well, the problem was I always come in when I do plan and I overplan. I come in with an idea of how it's going to work out. So I had this idea where Mike was going to say, Shane, you just came back from Jamaica. That's exciting. Tell us about it. And then I was going to do the opening with the Jamaica tale. But then it kind of...
Did I cut you off?
No.
I do that
we got
often.
into Conan. We got into a debate. Things were flying around a little differently. And then Mike's like, oh, we'll save the Jamaica story till the end. And by the end, because that pod was one of our longest ones ever we recorded, maybe not what made the final airing.
Now people are going to be intrigued as to all. There was a very long conversation that we ended up pulling out just for a plethora of reasons. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. But it was
well, sometimes if we go long on a topic, we truncate it. We just keep the most entertaining parts for the sake of the audience.
Totally.
So we have to get back to work at about 10. We try to get in before 10:30, and I started the Jamaica story at 10 something. So I was a little like rushing it. I was a little nervous, and so I missed like 3 or 4 jokes that I was supposed to tell.
Oh,
along the way.
do you want to tell us now?
Yeah, I think out of context, just hopping into.
I'm kind of curious to know what the jokes are. Give me one.
I can't. If I think of it, I'll come back later. Now I'm on the spot.
Okay.
I can't really think of it. But
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I do overplan just because I'm anxious and I want it to be told properly.
Yeah, but for our listeners, both of you guys have such an incredible brain for when it comes to storytelling and the way you string sentences together. I'm notoriously a little long in the tooth when it comes to my stories, and it's helped talking to Mike when it comes to my stage banter, where I'll be looking for some sort of narrative thread in the set for an Arkell show, and Mike... I'll go, okay, where, we walked through the conversation before. Yeah. It's like, okay, I want to be able to say this, but I also want to get to that. And then you go, well, why don't you just say simply, and then you say 6 words. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's the answer right there.
Right. You have a tighter bridge. Like this 6-word bridge will get you where you need to get it for the sentiment you want to get across or whatever you're trying to do.
Which is kind of the beauty of writers' rooms or just collaboration in general, where you can have an idea of where you want to go, but you don't know how to get there. And then just having that other perspective can just make all the difference right there.
Yeah, you're also great. You're
I'm
not giving
fine,
yourself enough credit.
But I lean on people like you.
Yeah, so anyway, great story. Really resonated. And then you asked people on Twitter to share their scam stories, and people did.
We got a lot of responses.
Yeah.
That was quite a...
Guys, we are building up a pod army. I just want to say that.
True.
And you know what? We should take this chance to this opportunity to say thank you to all our listeners, because people are listening, and it means a lot. You know, we're putting these out. We're trying to put them out more often. I know we've been a little infrequent with the lost episode. Summer days always get long, but hopefully we can snap back into a groove. 2 a week, maybe sometimes even 3 a week, and just keep knocking these things out.
And I get like DMs and Insta stories and stuff from pod fans. This is from Arkell's fans that go, "Oh, we're going to a show. I got like 4 hours of Mike on Much to go." It's like you guys kept me company the whole time. Like on the way, like for instance, we played in Lethbridge. Some people were coming from Calgary, listened to it on the way to the show. So it's cool.
Yeah,
and Erica
great.
put in a shitload of work to do those little story edits.
Shout out to
you
Erica.
Take a much longer story and you edit it down and you put the pictures to kind of form.
How long did
that's
that take
so
you?
much harder than it seemed.
Because Shane's was hard because that was a long story you had to condense into 2 minutes.
Oh, and then there was an issue that arose with that edit.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about it?
Alex had a nip slip. So
Really?
I gave her a photo. I didn't know Alex.
There was a nudie in the...
It was up on the Insta for a hot second.
Yeah, I didn't know. I thought it was like a piece of fabric, but it was actually... Her nipple just looked huge if that was her nipple, but Alex said it was, so we had to take it down. Like her nipple, and I was like, I called Erica. I'm like, I swear to God, her nipples aren't that big, but apparently that is a nipple there, so you have to take that out.
Yeah,
So I was kind
I
of
didn't notice
embarrassed
either.
because... Yeah, wife has normal nipples.
That needs to be the takeaway.
And the title of this episode.
That's going to be the title of this episode, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Should we get to topics?
Let's
How
do
are we
it.
doing? This is a recording on a Monday, so people will probably get it Tuesday morning. Erica, what are you thinking?
Yep, got to get it done tonight.
But
Yeah. Word.
I just want to add this. Speaking of my wife's nipples, this isn't the first time that happened.
I know this
because you're
story.
talking about our wedding.
Yeah.
So I wanted to jump in on this and segue. Is after you have a wedding, you get the photos back, and usually you might select 20 photos and publish them all on Facebook, so people can check out the best 20 and see them in the audience. My wife published 174 photos, like literally didn't curate any of the
Just
photos from our
uploaded?
wedding. And 4 nip slips were there. 4. Like full on nipple hanging out.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we had to remove those after the fact after Sean Dawson actually alerted us.
Well,
of
you
that.
did have the wedding on a nude beach, which was a weird choice. So it's like at that point.
Good work.
So guys, should we get to these topics?
Yep.
So like I said, so we had a lot going on this week as well. When are we recording again, Max? Only because I say this because tomorrow's a big night. It's like Dan Hamilton's birthday. It's our friend Peake's birthday. I feel like there's going to be a big kind of champagne
Is Pete
event.
coming to Toronto for this?
Oh, big time.
Oh, wow.
I got Peaky coming in. We're actually going for dinner right after work. I know the Dan Hamilton stuff's starting later.
All right,
but-
listen, there's a lot of names flying around right here, but Peake is one of our best friends, Matt McPeak. Also, Dan Hamilton's birthday. Chris Dickinson, my college roommate and resident at 85 Raquel.
Shout out.
He is in town from Vancouver. It's his birthday. Also, some college buddies, Chris Nechtel, who listens to the podcast. I was in Lethbridge in my hotel room at like 8 p.m. on Thursday night. We weren't playing. I just got a phone call from Chris Nechtel. And Chris doesn't call me very often. We text occasionally. He's a family man. He's an engineer. He lives in Orangeville. And he's just like, hey, Maxie, how you doing? I was like, hey, just hanging out in Lethbridge. What's going on? He's like, oh, just hanging out in my garage. And the boss came on, and I needed to call you.
Clearly an Adam Sandler character.
No. But and then I was like, oh, that's great. How are things going? He's like, oh, it's pretty good. And he's like, but he could tell that I was completely sober. And he's like, you're not quite on my level right now, are you? I'm like, I don't know if I am. But anyway, I told him about this birthday party on Tuesday. Chris is coming to town. And by the way, Chris lives in Orangeville. You know, he's like an executive basically at this engineering firm. So he's coming in. Mark Witt might be coming in. A bunch
I heard
of
about
people.
that.
So it's gonna be a good one. Can you come more?
No.
Why not?
Long story short, I have no money to go out, and I'm on a serious freeze.
We'll figure it out.
You and me both, Shane.
All right.
Yeah.
'cause- Okay. I
Okay,
got a lot
I'm
of
very
shit
into
going.
this scheme here. We'll make it worth your while.
What scheme?
Well, just like how do we get you from 5 p.m. to whenever you have to get home without spending $1, but you getting drunk?
Well, you're just gonna have to buy me everything, man.
No, but I think there'd be a fun way to do it too.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
That sounds fun too.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Because I got cockroaches, and I just found that out
Oh,
too.
that's
So yeah,
Shit, that's
got to
annoying.
get them out.
Yeah.
But
Quite costly.
Could
maybe,
lead to a funny story though.
Yeah. Could.
maybe we pod tomorrow after work.
No, can't. Got dinner with Matt McPeak.
What time?
Like 5:30 ish.
Oh, right there, and then you go. Okay, cool. Okay, maybe Wednesday. I don't know. We'll figure. I'm moving this week, but we'll
so
figure it out.
you can't do mornings though.
No, I can do
tomorrow
mornings.
morning. You know what? We don't need to figure this out for the listeners. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out later on. But hopefully, we're definitely doing a second episode.
Yeah,
this week,
definitely,
right?
definitely.
Great. So our first topic today is, in fact, Taylor Swift. We talked recently about Taylor Swift and this sort of controversy where Scooter Braun bought Big Machine record label, which owns the masters to all the Taylor Swift songs and the first, 5 albums? I'm not quite sure. She just came out with her 6th album recently,
Seventh.
actually. 7th, sorry. And she was very against the idea of Scooter Braun owning all of her music because she feels like he has bullied her in the past. She took a stance of essentially anyone but him should own the music. And I'm crushed. Max, Shane, myself, we all talked about the idea of her re-recording her masters. So we're going to address this a little bit. And I just want to thank Isabel, who actually messaged us on Instagram saying she's a big pod listener. She said, I particularly liked your discussion of the Scooter Braun Taylor Swift controversy. I just saw the video posted on Good Morning America of Taylor announcing that she would be re-recording the masters of her first 5 albums. I remember Max brought that scenario up on your Scooter Taylor pod, and I was wondering if you guys could revisit the topic in a future episode now that Taylor has made the announcement. Well, Isabel, we're addressing the topic. She did it.
Well, she's gonna do it.
She's going to do it.
Yeah.
I think in 2020, it's like November 2020. There's an actual date in the contract where she's allowed to contractually do it.
Wow.
So she's got to wait till 2020, and then she can re-record every one of these songs. I find this fascinating. And I kind of love that she's doing
So
it.
what does that mean exactly?
Okay, yeah, so for our listeners, I'll try to explain, and to Erica or anybody else who is sort of confused by this. So basically, she owns the song, she wrote the songs, or she and other co-writers wrote the songs, but the actual piece of art, like the actual recording, is owned by Scooter Braun,
Right.
or was owned by Scott Borchetta, former colleague of mine on the launch, who sold. So just think of a song recording like a piece of art, and it used to be owned by Scott Borchetta, this Taylor Swift piece of art, and then he sold that piece of art to Scooter Braun. So what she plans to do is re-record those songs, because anybody can record the song, and and because she's paying for it means that she will own that version of the recording. Now, the part that I'm a little bit confused about is, will there be two different versions that live on
Yes.
streaming? And then it'll be up to her fans to say, do I want to click on the original version of Fearless, or do I want to click on the newly recorded version of Fearless?
So what does she own right now?
Right now, she doesn't own any of it. She's written the
So
songs.
what does
and
that
she-
mean, like money-wise?
Well, she gets royalty. She wrote it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so basically, and I should know this, but a song is divided in half between the master side.
Yep.
So if you're selling the song for $1, 50% goes to whoever owns the master version of the recording, and the master version is the person who paid to have that made.
Okay.
So in this case,
The label.
Fearless would be the label, or Scott
Yep.
Borchetta, now Scooter Braun. The other 50% goes to the songwriter who actually wrote the song, and that would be Taylor Swift and any of her co-writers.
Okay.
So if she actually does this, it'll be very interesting to see, those songs living side by side on streaming and what her fans decide to choose.
So I thought about this and how she can do this. So like, let's say that she recreates almost indistinguishable. And do you think that's even possible? Indistinguishable copies, like versions?
Well, okay, so we've had this. What are you laughing about?
Mike's inability to
Say
say
indistinguishable.
So I had a joke.
I'm,
but then I
I'm
didn't wanna
having a
say
blue
it.
lobster, man.
These are 6%, by the way.
Do you think it's possible, let me try this again, to record indistinguishable versions of the songs?
Yes and no. So the Arkells have been in a situation not really like this at all, but we've bandied the idea about, let's re-record the song so we own it. This is like years ago, and it's not important. And I think for an indie band, doing that would be a real pain in the ass, because it would be expensive, and figuring out how to play those parts exactly the same way would be difficult. Now, in Taylor Swift's case, it actually is not that hard, because when you have every disposal, what's the expression? Resource at your disposal, and you have an unlimited budget, it's pretty fucking easy, because what you'd do is you'd hire a musical director or a producer to say, you just need to like musically recreate this as if it's a karaoke track, but much better than a karaoke track. When you hear a karaoke track that's just the instrumental, that's usually kind of performed in a half-ass kind of shitty way. Like, you know what I'm talking about if you've been a karaoke bar?
They're made quick
Oh, yeah.
and they
They're
are
made
what
quick.
they are. But it's like, if you have like a ton of money and state-of-the-art equipment, and they put all this love and care into recreating, what's that song? Love, Romeo and Juliet?
Fearless.
Fearless, thank you. It's like they can probably get it pretty close.
Oh, totally.
the
And
bed
also,
tracks.
they have the stems, I'm sure, at this point, to listen to each part and then have the same mixer. They could probably hire the exact same team. And if that guitar player is retired, they could find some other Nashville guitarist to recreate the part. So musically, it's actually doable. It'll take a minute, but again, she has every resource at her disposal. The only thing that would sound a little different is her voice, because she was singing some of those early albums when she was like 15,
Right.
17, 19 years old, and now she's 30. So there will be a quality of the music that is different, but if anybody can make it pretty close, it's Taylor Swift.
Okay, so now she probably posts it like she'd call like a song like name an old hit of hers.
Teardrops on my guitar.
Yeah.
Would she call it Teardrops on My Guitar A, or like would there just be a letter beside it, a distinction
Oh,
on?
she couldn't call it the same thing.
Well, she could.
No, she
but
could.
how would you? But how would you? If you're a fan and you want to support her owning the art,
See what
when
you
you
mean.
go on or
Probably
Spotify,
would bracket
Right.
like 2020 version.
there
or
you go.
something.
Okay, so it'd have
yeah.
the year beside
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I would put the word "the real" before every song title.
Like YouTube?
Well, everything. Just put "the real." So when you search,
Yeah.
you want to search all the real Taylor Swift
Yeah.
songs.
You think the other ones are fake?
No, that's the way she's going to look at it
Right.
going forward, and she's going to want all of her fans to be like, the real Teardrops on My Guitar, the real our song. Like,
So I think a large segment of her fans will always choose her new masters as sort of like a show of support. The other interesting thing, though, is like, let's say there's like song placement in a movie. So if they come to Taylor's camp and they're like, well, we want to place, what was the name of the song you just said?
Teardrops on My Guitar.
Teardrops on My or Dear John. I know that's a song. They're like, we want to put Dear John in this new Disney film, and we want. Which one do they buy? Can the Scooter Braun people
Undersell it.
Undersell it. No,
Well, it
seriously.
depends if they want to have a good relationship with Taylor going forward. They'll probably have to buy the real Dear John.
Which makes the music business politics part of it so
I
fucking
know.
interesting. Yeah.
But or could Taylor, as like the composer, deny the original one, but then be willing to sell the new one?
Oh, yeah.
She might have, like,
she
a
might have
veto
approval.
right.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
depends on like the language in the contract.
Anyway,
I suppose.
it's all very fascinating stuff. But she's going for it, and no one ever does this because it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of money. But I feel like this is a real sort of like stand on principle.
It makes me think of something you said, Mike, because I always, when I hear these situations, go, why do you care? Like, you've had every luxury in your life. You've had every life experience. And then you said, you're like, well, that's all you got is your pride. And
It's the last thing you can't buy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like she can afford anything in the world. She probably couldn't spend the amount of money that she's worth or could generate. But it's like something like this on principle is really like, it's kind of like, that's the real shit.
Yeah.
'Cause
We
it
were
matters
talking
to her.
about this with the Donald Sterling thing.
We were, yeah, we were.
Have you guys listened to that podcast yet?
No, I haven't. So I'm
just the beginning.
I'm an
Yeah.
episode and a half in, but then Danica started listening to it with me, and we're going to a cottage this weekend.
So
So,
you
we're
said-
saving it for
Oh,
the
cool.
drive. But it's the first episode and a half I thought is really
Yeah, it's
I'm
about the
into it.
Sterling, Donald Sterling, the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, and him getting booted from the league.
But we were talking about because there's Donald Sterling's actual wife,
Yeah.
who had
Shelley
been
Sterling.
wronged by the mistress,
Yeah.
and Mike was kind of wondering like, why? What's the point in taking her down, the mistress? Like, why take away?
Donald
her?
had a million mistresses over the years. All this stuff. She'd already lived a full lifetime of sort of being embarrassed. I'm doing air quotes of her billionaire. So basically, we'll do this really quick for the listeners. Donald Sterling and his wife Shelley were billionaires that amassed this fortune in real estate. He bought the Clippers in the 70s for like dirt cheap, like $8 million at a time. But he's always been a problematic sort of like racist slumlord. The league has known that he's been an issue for years. Cut to like 5 years ago or whatever it is, and he's got this mistress named V. Stiviano. Yeah, and his wife, who had like lived through a lot of Donald's mistresses or whatever, she didn't like that Donald was buying her like a ton of cars. He ended up buying her $1.2 million home in like LA, and they had some confrontation like in Beverly Hills. And so the wife and Donald and his wife Shelley sort of have always been very litigious. Whenever something goes wrong with one of their properties, they sue people because their theory is essentially no one else has the money and the time to outlast us in a litigation, so that's how you approach everything. So obviously the wife sued because she hated the mistress and the fact that Donald was buying her all these gifts and embarrassing her sort of around Beverly Hills and in their sort of wealthy circles. I posited to Shane because I go, I was thinking a lot about Shelley Sterling, and we know how this turned out. Basically, V had been recording secret conversations. It revealed Donald Sterling to be an immense racist, and it ruined him to the point where the league made him sell his team. So he lost his NBA team. It was shamed. Players are going to boycott. It was this huge NBA story. It was very embarrassing for the league, and they kind of lost the team. There's only 30 of them. They Simmons always refers to it as like beachfront property. There's only 30 of those places, and they're the hardest thing to get in the world, and it's a real sort of a feather in the cap of a millionaire's hat. And Shelley, the wife, she would go to the game. She was part of this whole sort of like scene, this NBA owners club. I said to Shane, if Shelley knew how it was going to turn out, where her husband was going to be exposed as a racist, which makes people question, like, Shelley was just as intertwined in the business dealings with the real estate. Like, is Shelley racist as well? Did she hold those views about tenants and all that stuff? I don't know. But what it does is it shone a light on them that was very unflattering and ultimately resulted in their shame and having to sell the team. My question was, do you think late at night when she's sitting there, all these years later, if she was like, you know what, like, he was already sleeping with other mistresses, did I have to cut off my nose to spite my face? Was making the point worth our public embarrassment and shaming my husband this much?
The embarrassment was already there, though.
Right. But not like this. We're talking about the situation. None of us would have knew.
I know you haven't listened to the rest of
Right.
the pod, but she comes off very, very well in the end. Like empowered almost. Like,
Yeah.
have you listened to the whole thing?
No, I'm only
okay.
about as far as Mike is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the question is like, is it worth it? And then this is the conversation. Shane said, I think just for her pride.
Well, she's like the hero of that podcast if you listen all the way through.
Yeah, because she does. I guess with him getting booted from the league, even though she divorced him anyway, right? So
No, she's still with him.
Really?
I'm not even joking.
And he's this reprehensible racist. So what does that say about her? Like, it's all this very weird kind of situation where it's like, I don't know. Like, I guess the question is like, is the principle of I'm not going to let Donald and his his side girlfriend continue on. But it's like they already had an arrangement. Like
Yeah.
It was the fact was it was her money though too. Like Donald was gifting this woman
From the joint account.
Lamborghinis and homes using the joint account.
Yeah.
So she's like, "That's my money. I didn't sign off on that."
But this was my point. They literally have more money you could ever spend in a lifetime. So they're like worth billions.
But that's
Your
what we're
point
ta-
is that it's like it's a pride thing.
That's what
Yeah.
that's what I was saying to
Yeah.
Mike, like because you were wondering like why even bother, like why drag yourself through the mud, and I was like it's actually empowering because it's like no, this is my money. It's not about money. It's about pride. I worked for this. You don't get to be at my level just because someone gifted that to you.
Yeah.
Like when you're a mistress, you take an inherent risk of you get some spoils if you're with some like sugar daddy, but that can be easy.
and you're speaking as a former mistress.
Yeah, I am. Easy come, easy go, though, right? That's the agreement.
You did make that point, which was great. Yeah.
So anyway,
Like Shelley's been there for 50 years building this sort of empire. And they both started off like dirt poor. Like neither of them came from money. They built this thing over the last half century. And then now like V just sort of is this hot thing that sort of infiltrated these wealthy circles and sort of got Donald wrapped around the finger. And so the wife Shelley was essentially like, fuck this. I'm putting an end to this, even if it's at the expense of our reputations. You know, internationally, this league, we're literally leading Sports Center every night on ESPN. It was wildly embarrassing for everybody.
and she did break up with Donald for a little bit, and then in fact, like at the reveal at the end, you find out they're back together, and it's kind of mind blowing.
That's crazy.
Well, to bring back to Taylor though, yeah, sorry, that
That was a really long
Sorry,
digression.
I know I'm an
no,
idiot. I
no,
shouldn't have
it's
done
all
that.
good. No, but I think we're getting at this idea of put yourself in the shoes of someone who's really wealthy and famous, and you just can't do it. Like it's very hard to put yourself in the mindset of somebody else. And I've learned this. What are you laughing about?
Just Greg let out the biggest sigh just now. No,
Greg's just been on his phone the whole time. He's like, I'm going to listen to this conversation in about an hour at the bar anyway.
Yeah.
But because I learned this lesson as a young band, I'd sometimes see other bands that were ahead of us and older and been doing it for a while. For example, spending their money in ways that I just could not comprehend. We're like, I can't believe this band is on a bus. They probably shouldn't. They probably can't afford that bus. That's insane that they're on a bus. Or I can't believe that band has 6 crew members. And now that we're in that situation, I go, oh, I totally understand why they did it. It's just a good thing to remember that until you've lived in someone's shoes, it's always. And I remind myself that every day as I get older, and you don't have that perspective when you're younger, that someone else's experience is just something you can't necessarily relate to. By the way, I think I'm getting kind of drunk for these Blue Lobsters because I don't know if that
too.
totally
I'm
made
feeling
sense.
it.
I'm on number 2.
Well, what you're saying is
There's more?
basically. Is there
Yeah.
more? Great.
Oh,
Well,
I've been nursing, but I'm good.
No. We got hey, Greg, do you want to be useful and grab some in the fridge? No.
everybody's experience is obviously relative to their own situation, which seems like an obvious statement. But you see this
That
a
was,
lot.
see, you're much shorter, and your brevity is very appreciated.
But this seems like you see this a lot with. We talk about this with athletes so basically it's like when an athlete doesn't like their work situation or they feel like their organization is letting them down and they ask for a trade. People get really bent out of shape because they go, listen, like you're getting paid millions of dollars to play a kid's sport. Like shut up and play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing is, once you've been making millions of dollars for 4 years, and it's like they don't view their work situation any different than I think any other person. It's relative.
Yeah.
Everybody you work with makes a relatively same amount of money. You're all making lots of money, and it's like I don't want to live in New York City anymore. I would like to live in Los Angeles, or I don't want to live in Portland. I want to live in Toronto. Whatever it is, whatever your motivations, it's like they're not thinking the way that the fan is thinking. The fan looks at them and they're like, they won the lottery. Like every day should literally be amazing. You should wake up every day and be like, thank God that I make $10 million a year. And I get the mentality because, like, you do think that. But then when I put myself in the position of the athlete, it's like you get over sort of your level very quick and you just get used to your lifestyle. And then it goes back to reverts to happiness.
I've been complaining about the most ludicrous shit to manager Ash lately.
Such as?
Like, I had to pay for movers. And I was like, this is fucking bullshit. I was like, I don't know. I was like, I had to pay a phone bill. I was like, fuck this. I was getting so angry about it.
Are you saying that you're losing touch, Max?
I'm totally losing touch, yeah.
Yeah.
People's champ.
We'll keep you grounded. Yeah.
I know you will.
Well, you're going to be paying for
Well,
Shane.
Greg will, yeah.
Yeah, Greg definitely will. You're going to be paying for Shane's drinks tomorrow night.
That's
so
true.
that will
That's
be
true.
good. So Taylor Swift. So here's my question. What are our thoughts on Scooter Braun's position? So when he sees this announcement, does he go, fuck, she called the bluff?
Again, it's hard to know how Scooter Braun feels like because he lives in another planet. It's like he might go fuck, or he might go, I don't give a shit. I manage Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, Kanye West. Who else? It's like I got my own army, and I don't give a fuck about a bunch of Taylor Swift stans.
But I imagine he paid $300 million for the label because of the catalog.
And he's probably going, you know what? This is all fun and games anyway. This is all just a game of war, and I'm gonna go fucking sell the shit out of these songs and make a fuck ton of money from them.
Mm-hmm. But she's gonna block that.
And then he'll be like, I'll figure out another way around.
Right, I see. So you think that maybe he sees it as a challenge?
Yeah, the gamesmanship of these
What
players.
a crazy loophole, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you'd think he could see this coming.
Well, that's the thing. I think because this is so unprecedented, it's like he's betting. It's like she'll be upset for a bit, but she's not going to re-record 5 albums worth.
Yeah.
That's just what you'd think. So yes, I'll pay $300 million for the catalog, or not the catalog, the label, which includes the catalog. It's just such a fascinating thing to me that one of the major assets of his purchase is now going to be devalued in 6 months when she re-records it. In theory,
Right.
Have you guys listened to the record, by the way?
The new one?
Yeah.
I have actually.
I only listen to the old ones. I do. I think they're like, I haven't heard any buzz about the new one.
Yeah, people are liking it. What do you think, Mike?
I enjoyed it. I like we put it on in the house, like probably like because Danica's a big Taylor Swift fan, so like we put on I probably listened to the first what is it? It's like 18 tracks.
Yeah.
We probably listened to 12.
But just in the way you're talking, there's no energy. I can tell it's not a banger. Like,
Well-
not one song's as good as Blank Space. I can guarantee you that.
That is true. Greg, have you listened to it?
I've listened to parts. Yeah, I've listened to a lot of it. I like it. I've never actually really listened to a full Taylor Swift album, so this is kind of the first one, and it's good.
Erica, have you listened to it?
I haven't.
See?
I don't like Taylor
should be.
Swift.
You didn't like Blank Space?
No, I only like Fearless. I listen to
Okay.
Fearless often.
Okay.
Hey, Steven.
Yeah, sorry. Hey,
Great
Steven.
song.
What's her best song? It's Blank Space, right?
Blank Space
is
isn't
really
bad.
good.
Yeah, that's good.
I like it. I don't love it. Okay, so I think a lot
Is
of
this the
Taylor
new
Swift.
album?
Yeah, her new
Okay.
record. You've heard me complain about this. Greg and Dan, our friend Dan and I are in a group chat, and we've talked about this ad nauseum already, so I'll keep it brief. But basically, she's in a very interesting position where she can choose to work with any songwriter in the world. Everybody would love to. And she has her pick of the most talented songwriters, producers. Lately, on this record, she's mostly worked with 3 guys. There's a Toronto connection, Frank Dukes, who's a local producer who I think sort of was made famous because he did Havana, a Camila Cabello
Yeah.
song. And our trumpet player, Tom, has played trumpet on Havana. Because
Wow.
they tracked some of that in Toronto at Noble, at the recording studio. And he's on the first track, and they actually used the children's choir from Regent Park on one of the Taylor Swift songs
Cool.
because he produced it and he brought that sample in. She also worked with Joel Little, who's an Australian guy who's made famous with the Lord stuff. But the dude who takes up most of the real estate on the record is Jack Antonoff. And I'm somewhat jealous of Jack Antonoff. He is formerly in Fun. Bleachers is his own project. He's also half Jewish. He also likes Bruce Springsteen.
Famously dated Lena Dunham.
Yeah, famously
And Scarlett Johansson.
And Scarlett Johansson. So with the exception of the famous girlfriends, we're very alike in a lot of ways. And he has sort of had sort of finger on the pulse of every big female pop act in the last 4 years. So he's produced the St. Vincent record, Lorde, some Carly Rae Jepsen stuff.
He's got the touch. He's been positioned almost like a Rick Rubin of this generation.
Exactly. Now here's the thing. My opinion of him is clouded because I'm very jealous of him, but I don't know. He's very good. He's very, very good, and I honestly couldn't do what he does. But I don't know if he's as good as Max Martin. And Max Martin is responsible for 22, Blank Space. What's the best song on the last record? Can we all agree? It's Delicate.
What? I've never heard of that.
It's New Year's Day.
It's not New Year's Day. That
Come
was not a
on.
single. Are you joking?
Does the best song have to be a single?
No, he did New Year's Day. Jack Antonoff did New Year's
Okay.
Day.
Oh, so that's
That's good
a
too.
touchy spot for me.
But if we're talking certified bangers, as we talked off the top, I don't think there's a certified banger on this album. And
Is the last album the one where she's like, "Oh, there's a new Taylor in town"? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
Why?
I
'Cause
don't know
she's
that album.
dead.
yeah, that's
She's been
dead.
shit for the last 2 albums.
Yeah, well-
she's dead.
well, Jack Antonoff did that song. And he.
You don't think Lover is a certified banger? That's the only single so far.
Lover's
right?
a really nice song.
No, she had the lead single. The
Me.
one sounds like a Sesame Street song.
Yeah, me. That's oh, by the way,
That's with Panic at the Disco, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Panic at the Disco. By the way, I didn't know this, and I haven't actually listened to confirm it, but manager Ash texted me on the weekend, said, "Holy shit." You know the part in the song when they go, "Spelling is fun"? Do you remember that part in the song "Me"? Do you know what I'm
No.
talking about?
I just thought it sounded like a Sesame Street song.
Okay, basically
Honestly,
in the
same.
bridge, there's a part goes, "All right, kids, spelling is fun."
Really?
And then people fucking roasted them so badly for that lyric on the Spotify version. It's no longer there.
They pulled it out.
They pulled it out. But here's the thing. If you look at the streams didn't change. So normally, if you were to replace a song on
They
Spotify,
can manipulate the data.
Yeah, if you were to pull a song on Spotify, you'd have to start at play number 1. They just
It's like
let
if you
Taylor
remove a YouTube video and put it back up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Taylor gets her own rules apparently because the play count did not go back to 0, and it's a totally different version.
We live in a society where there's different rules for different people.
blue check marks.
This is
Wow.
getting
Right?
back to the last pod.
So anyway, I guess my only point is I wish there was a couple Max Martin songs on the record because he has proven time and time again to be a wizard. He has every great song from Katy Perry to Ariana Grande, Britney Spears, Kelly Clarkson, and she did not use him on this record when I think she should have. That's my only take.
That's your review.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's a really good record. I've actually really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of Jack Antonoff's stuff is like truly right up my alley, and I think we share a lot in common musically speaking. But I look to Max Martin in some like transcendent, divine way that like he comes up with shit that I'm like, holy fuck. And I think most of the industry would agree with that. And she did not use him on this record. So I think that's why maybe it's missing that kind of song.
What is your favorite T Swift record?
Good question. I Fearless is up there.
What's the one with blank page? What?
1989.
Blank
That's
Space.
the best one. What have I been calling it?
Blank Page?
Oh, that's a Smashing Pumpkins song. Blank Space. That's the best one.
Yeah.
I'll write your name.
Greg, what's your favorite T Swift album?
Someone give Greg a mic. He's a music critic.
Greg, yeah, take mine.
I liked. Like I said, I haven't really listened to many albums, but I liked the Ryan Adams version of 1989. That was nice. That was sweet to the ears. Does that exist anymore, or is he's
I think it's still out.
canceled?
He's canceled.
He's canceled.
Yeah,
He
so
gone.
That's out. It's gone.
Oh, that's too long to get into.
Yeah.
But anyway, this new one is pretty all right. Lover's a great song.
Because it's a Mazzy Star song.
It sounds exactly like Mazzy Star.
Cool reference point, though.
Yeah, it's good though. Max, would you work with Jack Antonoff even though you hate him?
Of course I would.
So you hate him, but you work with him because you want,
Oh,
you want that hit.
when I say I hate him, I'm just jealous.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I had lunch with him once.
Oh, yeah. He wasn't nice, though, right?
He was fine.
Here
He
comes
talked
the truth.
about Scarlett Joe.
Oh, did you ask him about it?
Yeah.
I thought you said it was an awkward lunch, or maybe that was the
It
whole
was
thing.
awkward because we were filming it. But
okay.
yeah, he was nice.
Why'd you have
Oh,
it?
yeah, there you go.
For Much, we did a thing called That Much Closer, and the band was Fun that we had to film. And he was in the band Fun. Oh, so
Charmed
Greg
life.
wants the mic.
When you were hanging out with Fun, could you tell that they didn't like each other and they weren't long for this world?
No. I didn't know they didn't like each other.
One or two albums, then done. They got
They did
huge
two
when
albums?
They
I
broke
thought it was
up.
just one album.
No, they did two albums. But yeah, then they broke up.
But the chemistry seemed all right at the lunch, other than the awkwardness of being filmed.
Yeah, it seemed fine.
All right. Well, there you go. Given all the good inside dirt on this podcast.
But the lead singer was very, very, very aware he was on camera at all times. Like everything he did had an artifice to it.
Sorry, just one last point. I just want to say that Dan Hamilton and I, about 10 years ago, went and saw
Dog Problems.
Dog Problems, that band. The format and opening for format was Steel Train. So the format, the lead singer is Nate Roos, who was in Fun, and then opening was Steel Train, lead singer Jack Antonoff. That's where they became best friends. Then they started Fun. That's it.
And now they're not best friends.
I used to think the lead singer of Fun was Marky Mark for like 4 years.
A lot of people thought the lead singer of Fun was Mike Veerman or Greg Veerman. Nate Roos looks like Greg, I think.
Veerman vibe?
Yeah, totally.
Strange.
All right, that's that.
There you have it. Should we keep it moving?
Yeah.
Man, it's nice to be back potting.
That's great.
Yeah, how was Lethbridge, by the way?
Lethbridge was awesome, actually. We played with the Dirty Nil and Deer Rouge, so it was a great hang with everybody.
Do they know that like the Dirty Nil's like essentially your brother-in-law?
Who's they?
Like
The
people,
public.
fans.
Oh, not really. Our Lauren, my girlfriend, her brother is Luke, the singer of the Dirty Nil.
Yeah.
Yeah, not really. But Luke came up on stage. We did a song together.
Oh, what'd you guys do?
Brad Mary, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Eddie Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
Eddie Murphy is... Greg, did you just pump your fist in the air, actually?
Greg perks up. He's
Greg's
finally
just crushing
listening.
a drink, pumping fists
Greg,
in the air.
take a microphone, my man.
Oh, hold
Hey,
on.
wait
I've
till you
seen
get a
it.
goddamn microphone.
Yeah, man, you got to know how these podcasts work. Erica's sending the microphone over to Greg. Although it's coming back to Erica because I know you have a lot of opinions on Eddie Murphy.
She's never heard of Eddie Murphy.
Do you know who Eddie Murphy is?
Yes, I have seen Daddy Daycare.
Dr.
Erica, do you
Dolittle.
prefer raw or delirious?
Oh, delirious.
Never seen it. I just know The F word.
Raw has more F words in it, actually.
Hasn't aged so well. So anyway, Eddie Murphy is returning to host SNL. This is fascinating for a few reasons. Eddie Murphy obviously became a superstar because as a 21-year-old, he got cast on SNL out of being a stand-up comedian, and he was the youngest cast member, I believe, for a long time, up until maybe Pete Davidson. I'm not sure. But anyway, he was one of the youngest in the history of the show. It was kind of this, just a little bit of SNL history. It started in 1975, Lorne Michaels, all the sort of people that came out of that show, like legends like John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Gilda Radner. They cycled out, and there was this kind of weird period in the 80s where they weren't quite sure what the show was going to be. And in fact, it probably was going to be canceled. But Eddie Murphy was this 21-year-old kid that was like an undeniable superstar. He popped immediately and basically became an instant sensation on that show. Started shooting movies, I think, by his second season, and by like his third, I might be wrong on these numbers, was basically leaving the show, only doing it part-time because he had done another 48 Hours with Nick Nolte. What's the great Christmas one with Dan Aykroyd? Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop, and basically he's arguably the most successful cast member of Saturday Night Live ever. Would you guys argue that? Is Will Ferrell or Mike
that's
Myers?
a lot of people though.
Yeah,
like Bill
Sandler
Murray.
and Farrell, I think, are up there.
Yeah, but I
Bill
mean, like
Murray.
Eddie's been nominated for an Oscar. Like Eddie's like
What was he an Oscar for?
Dreamgirls. He was like, he's a superstar, man. Like his movies, like in the 80s, he was like probably the biggest star in the world. I don't think Sandler's ever been the biggest. He's been a big comedy star. Farrell's been a huge comedy star. Mike Myers been a huge comedy star. Eddie was like a Will Smith at his peak.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, Shane, or do you feel like Eddie's not?
Eddie's not a big star?
No, the biggest star to ever come out of SNL, comparatively to like.
It's either him or Will Ferrell, for sure.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's like, because he hasn't had a moment in how many years? Like,
He's
20?
kind of like the Beatles, though. He was like the best guy in the world for such a short period of time, but it still is lasting to this day.
revered,
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, though, this is not totally a fair comparison. It's like when you hear like, oh, Peter Frampton was bigger than the Beatles, and like from 1976 to 1978, Peter Frampton was the biggest thing ever. And now we're like, I don't
But
really
no
give a
one's
shit.
still debating Peter Frampton to this day. Eddie Murphy's halo is still like existing today.
Yeah, it just feels like it's been so long, and the state of
He's
comedy
such
is
a legend. His
it is-
legend keeps
Well, he's
growing.
done the
Does
smart
it,
thing
though?
is he walked away
Yes.
from the stage, and now everyone like that's what he did. He kind of like pulled back. He's done stupid family movies. He's never returned to stand-up comedy, and it's just like every comedian, everyone who cares, comedy nerds are like,
He's like the
everybody-
Michael Jordan of comedy.
The only thing I'd say is that the difference between comedy and music is that songs live on in a way that comedy does not live on. So it's like people are like, oh my God, what he was doing at the time was groundbreaking. And now it doesn't really, like, it holds up kind of. It's pretty inappropriate. Like, comedy doesn't hold up the same way.
I think his specials hold up. I just think his language and some of his.
So you think his
outlook
specials
doesn't.
hold up still?
I bet you if we had drinks and watched the special tonight, which is it's kind of on the table, I bet you we would laugh a lot. Now, I haven't watched when Greg and I lived at Veer Mansion with Dan
you
Hamilton.
used to watch it every night almost.
And Shane Cunningham used to come over to. We had this place in Hamilton on West 31st called Veer Mansion. We loved that place. We all used to hang out there years ago. We had Raw on constantly. Like we could do bits from it right now, but. I don't know, like there's certain language, there's outlooks, like the stuff where like whenever he talks about like homosexuality, that shit does not hold up now for sure. But relationship stuff is kind of universal. Anyway, I think he had 2 transcendent specials, obviously, that made him a superstar. And then he probably has like 6 huge movies that are like, wow, those stand up next to like anybody's like catalog.
Are you worried about the return, though? I guess that's the question I'm interested
So
in.
here's
As fans, you're like,
Yes, I am.
Fans, like, yeah.
So here's what's interesting about the return. Eddie has had a sort of there's been this sort of like simmering tension between him and SNL for years, and he wouldn't go back and honor. Like a lot of people come back. Will Ferrell's hosted, Kristen Wiig's hosted. Anyone that leaves, legacy people, Bill Murray,
Even Sandler
Dan
just did
Aykroyd.
it.
Do you know what created that tension? Greg.
I do not. Tell me.
Greg
please.
created the tension.
No, I'm asking Greg because I think Mike knows.
Greg created the tension.
Yeah. I do not with Eddie Murphy. No.
It's because there's like an unwritten rule that SNL isn't supposed to lambaste their stars or former stars.
Like if you're part of the alumni, if you're part of
Right.
the fraternity.
Base, layman terms, please.
Oh, make fun of.
Okay, so
What is
I've never heard that word in my life.
coming from you? What does that mean? I don't know
you're
words.
a self-proclaimed layman. No?
Laymen.
Layman.
That's the French term.
All right.
Layman.
You're the
All
layman.
right, I can take an insult.
Yeah. So yeah.
So David Spade had a segment on Weekend Update called Hollywood Minute. And then he was like this really snarky, Greg Vierman-esque, cynical guy in it. And he was like, "Oh, look, a falling star." And then he made fun of Eddie Murphy's career.
Ooh.
And Eddie never forgot that moment.
I just heard Spade on Simmons' podcast, and they literally were talking about that segment.
That Hollywood Minute was very funny. He would just come on and he would kill celebrities for a minute on Weekend Update.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And he was just very. I mean, his whole bit is kind of being snarky. But yeah, Eddie had just had a flop, I think, with Vampire in Brooklyn, which was like.
So Eddie refused to come and do the 25th anniversary of SNL, but he did end up coming to the 40th anniversary, but he refused to do a Bill Cosby imitation on it.
So Kenan Thompson had to do it instead.
And he refused to do anything funny at all. He just came out and was very straight.
Oh,
said-
he's so scared to be funny now because the legend of him is so great.
So much
He's
bigger than
scared
he
to
could deliver.
disappoint.
He does it a bit in the Comedians in Cars with Seinfeld. Did you guys watch that episode?
Oh, I haven't.
Yeah.
He did
I
Cosby?
was
Yeah,
cringing
It's tough. Yeah. It's
because he's scared to ruin his legacy.
Yeah. No, he knows.
And
That's a
in doing so,
fascinating
he is.
Okay, so today they announced on December 5th, Eddie Murphy, or December 21st, I don't know. I'd have to look.
21st, yeah, it's the holiday.
He will be hosting Saturday Night Live. And to Shane's point, the reason this is so interesting for people that have either been into Eddie or into comedy in general or sort of like the mechanics of these things or just like the sort of history or the story is it's like, what's he going to do? Is he going to come on and do old characters? Is he going to do Buckwheat? Is he going to do like Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood?
I think he's comfortable to slip into that donkey voice persona or
one of his hugest characters. You know Donkey from Shrek.
Yeah, donkey. Yeah.
but he's not comfortable being the cool guy version of himself.
Like, what's his monologue going to look like?
Exactly.
Like, is he going to do 5 minutes?
Did he ever
stand up?
Yeah. Do
so
you think he's gonna start going to the clubs to start workshopping shit? Because
That's what he always says. He's always like, "Oh, I got to go to the club." He's like, "But I can't because
I'm too
Well,
famous.
shit will leak.
yeah."
That's the problem these days.
Fuck.
So that's why this is like a must-watch in a lot of ways.
Well, remember he was gonna host the Oscars a few years ago, and then he backed out last minute, so he could still back out.
Well, that's a whole other thing. That's because he was in a movie called Tower Heist with directed by Brett Ratner, who has also been canceled recently. But right before, so Brett Ratner had done Tower Heist with him and Ben Stiller. Then he had gotten the job producing the Oscars. But then Brett Ratner had made a comment in an interview where he said rehearsal is for, and he used the F word. And then so the Oscars were like, "What do you do? Like, why would you use that language?"
Eddie said that?
No, Brett Ratner,
Brett,
who's
okay.
producing it. So then Brett Ratner gets fired from the Oscars producing gig. Eddie, who had just been in a movie directed by him, was like, we've been preparing with this guy. Who am I going to work with now? So Eddie was like, I feel like you're setting me up to fail. So Eddie had to back out. He was going to host, I think it was the 2011 Oscars.
Well, here's my question: is that okay? I remember you guys talking about JFL last year. How Jim Carrey won an award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just like, even though that guy probably hasn't been working in the clubs and he probably feels a little removed from everyday life and what normal people go through, he still had such a force of personality, and his comedy instincts were so good that even though he started off a little wonky, by the end he had the room captivated and was fucking hilarious. And I wonder if that'll be the same case for Eddie. Do you think Eddie just has that in him,
No.
or you don't think because?
No.
I feel like when it comes to a lot of creative pursuits, whether it's songwriting or novel writing or anything, you have to do it regularly. And the guys that age well are the people that are hungry as fuck. And we talked about Conan being an amazing comedian still to this day because he lives and breathes it every single day. Eddie Murphy famously got famous and rich really fast and then just rolled in fucking in the nicest possible way. In LA and just seemed to walk away from the actual work itself.
He was the first rock star comedian.
Yeah.
He sort of invented that
Well, Richard Pryor might have been the first.
I think Richard Pryor was dangerous, but I think Eddie with the leather and Eddie had a persona.
Yeah,
It was
that's
he was
true.
Elvis, but doing
That's true.
stand up.
Which is sort of antithetical to stand up too. To
Exactly.
A degree.
That's
Yeah.
why it was this kind of interesting sort of juxtaposition or dichotomy. But what I do think is interesting to what you're saying is I think guys like Jim Carrey and Robin Williams and Conan.
Exactly. I was going to compare Jim to Robin.
They're
But
very
continue.
they have they can't stop. They have this sort of compelling need to entertain you. Eddie is the sort of guy that actually, if he was at I feel like if he went to a dinner party with a lot of those guys I just mentioned, at some point, Conan would have to entertain you with some anecdote. I think Eddie would probably just quietly eat.
I think Eddie's an introvert too.
Do you think he's funny in a room? Do you think he'll be in a room and he'll take over and tell stories? I don't think he does, and I think he's kind of scared to even try to be funny in case he's not funny. I think he overthinks it. I think he's
100%.
got to be kind of just overthinking it, and like he just seems like that guy. I don't know, obviously, but it seems like he would be too scared to even try to be funny because he knows people expect him to be funny, and then if he's not funny, then I think he might.
And this is one of the issues with rolling like you're a rock star is that it's like you can't be that sort of like observational kind of guy because you're just worried about the way you're sort of like being perceived like as you walk into a club. Am I being?
I also don't think Dave Chappelle's a type of guy to just be like Jim Carrey and like all eyes on me, put the spotlight on me. So it's like there's two different schools of comedy. I consider like Eddie Murphy a true comedian, and Jim Carrey's more like I don't know, just a stream of consciousness guy, like the way Robin Williams was.
I also think too, like with like to the point about Eddie, like. I think Eddie's cool. I think Dave Chappelle is cool. And the problem is sometimes comedy and being cool are at odds. So like it's like if you're worried about being like cuz what's being cool essentially? It's kind of being like alternative. It's not participating, right? Not caring, not trying. And if you're a comedian, the whole sort of like basis of your existence is trying to make people laugh. You're trying. It's trying. And trying is not inherently cool the way that we view it. So it's like if you're someone trying to make somebody laugh, it's like you either need to own it or be so good at it or you're going to seem lame. And and Eddie, I think, is such a smart person. And when it was like his muscle was strong and he'd sort of been doing comedy stand-up since he was like 14, it's like he was able to do it in 1986. That was, 30 years ago now? So it's like 33 years ago.
Being hungry is so important.
Yeah. And what are the jokes now? It's like, oh, like the bidet in my, 30 square foot bathroom stopped working.
Well, you can always find the jokes. It's just that
universal stuff.
He hasn't even been trying or flexing his muscle.
Yeah.
So to expect that he's going to come out and be as good as he was in 1984 is just ludicrous.
So do you predict like just a straight monologue and then a ton of character work?
Oh, he's going to have so many writers and practice and rehearsals. Like, it could be good. I just think he's lost his touch.
Interesting.
I do think he committed, and he's already like he must be sweating it. Like I feel like he's probably thinking about it.
I think he's going to go
yeah.
broad, like the Clumps Shrek Donkey version.
No.
I saw a
don't
funny
know.
tweet that was like...
He did in Comedians in Cars.
That's true.
I saw a funny tweet that was like, and Eddie's been announced for December 21st, which gives him exactly 4 months to back out.
Yeah.
Because he could bail.
Well, he's promoting a movie too. He's got that movie coming to TIFF, the Dolomite movie.
Dolomite, yeah.
Dolomite, yeah.
Which feels kind of like vintage Eddie's doing character work.
Well, it's like a biography. It's like Dolomite movies from like the 70s.
No, I thought there was like an original
movie's
character.
like a biopic, yeah.
Really? Like about the guy that made
There's like actual Dolomite movies from the 70s. It's like the actor who he was like a comedian. He made up this character and then they made movies out of it. So it's a biopic.
Oh, there you go. I need to do more research. Yeah, but I mean, it feels very much like, remember that movie he did called Bowfinger?
Yeah.
That was like critically received.
I love that
very well?
movie.
Yeah.
Steve Martin movie.
Yeah.
That's a great fucking movie.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Eddie
That's a
plays
really
super-
funny movie.
So that got your attention, and you're saying he's not a superstar?
No, I love that movie. That's my favorite movie. My favorite Eddie Murphy movie.
That was like his last funny movie.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Bowfinger, great.
Bowfinger,
movie.
yeah.
Did Steve Martin direct that?
Yeah,
No.
Steve Martin wrote it.
What?
Steve Martin wrote that movie.
Oh, I'm learning.
I don't know if you directed, but what's your favorite Eddie Murphy movie?
Oh, good question. What is my favorite Eddie Murphy? Coming to America is really
Yeah, that's-
damn
I think
funny,
that's mine,
man.
too. I think
Like
Coming to America.
that's probably right up there. Trading Places will always have like a fun little place in my heart, just because it's so ridiculous, and it's like always fun to watch the rich get fucked over.
Yeah,
I like Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Erica, what's your favorite Eddie Murphy movie?
Norbit.
Oh,
Hey.
good pull.
Hey.
Did you look at his IMDb while we were talking over here?
It's like,
You've seen Norbit.
yeah. Ma'am, are you wearing bottoms? Of course I'm wearing bottoms.
No one's seen Norbit except for you. So.
Okay, Eddie Murphy to me is the complete opposite of what you all just described. Was he big in the 80s?
Yeah. that
Really?
No, seriously. Like,
He was like
I
literally
guarantee you-
the biggest star of the 80s. It
Oh,
was like
no.
Magic Johnson, Bon
Yeah.
Jovi, and Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Like, I know like Shrek and Norbit and Daddy Daycare. He plays, every movie he's in that I know, he plays like 18 different characters.
Right.
The Nutty Professor?
Heard of it, never seen it. But to me, like, the biggest star of SNL, like, why did no one say Amy Poehler? Like,
Because they don't gross enough money.
Mean Girls? Mean Girls is on Broadway.
And Tina Fey.
Yeah,
wrote that
no.
movie.
By the way,
Tina
like
Fey. And I
I'd
swear-
say
they
that
must have
like
been nominated for-
Adam Sandler, Will Ferrell, and Eddie Murphy are like A+.
We're not doing this to
top
be like,
echelon.
oh, men rule. It's just the highest grossing stars.
Yeah, and just the amount of
True,
like
he
big time
probably,
movies
yeah.
they made. And by the way, there's a lot of dudes in the Amy Poehler,
Tina
Fey
Fey's
character.
Tina
What do you
Fey
think
was
Bill
huge
Murray
for
lands?
him.
Oh,
Bill Murray, yeah.
Is
I
he
mean,
more niche, or is it like him? And even Dan Aykroyd had he was as big as
Ghostbusters.
Bill
Ghostbusters. He's in Trading Places.
Bill was a star, but he wasn't as big as Eddie, man. Like Eddie's movies were like, you know what? How we think of like Tom Cruise and Will Smith and all that. Like Eddie was a movie star like that in the 80s. And I think that like Will has only ever been a comedy superstar. Adam Sandler's been a comedy superstar for a good like 6-year run. I think Eddie transcended that stuff.
What defines transcending?
Yeah. What about the Jimmy Fallon's and people who made it on late night? No, I'm serious. Like because I know way more about like Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers than I do about Eddie Murphy.
Well, in the hierarchy, I guess, of like to answer your question, like Jimmy Fallon's had 2 movies that I can think of: Taxi with Queen Latifah and Fever Pitch with Drew Barrymore, and both of them were huge flops. So you know.
So is it a movie that makes you transcend?
Yeah, like if he didn't get the late, if he didn't get the Tonight Show, he'd be. Like,
He's a
Casinos
TV
today,
host.
yeah.
There's a big difference between a TV host and a movie star. Just because a movie star, like if you have the right movie, you could generate $500 million. A person that hosts a nightly TV show, like I guess when they talk about superstar, it's like 1, I guess people that are into you, sort of like your fans, and then 2, how much money you can generate. That would sort of like dictate the hierarchy, your place.
Yeah, it's also like simply, it's like if you were to poll 100 Canadians, it's like how many people would know Eddie Murphy versus Tina Fey versus Seth Meyers? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and in my mind, it's like I think I like Seth Meyers more than the other 2, but he's probably would pull at like 8%, and Tina Fey would probably pull at 16%, and Eddie Murphy would probably pull at 72% out of
Also,
100
though,
people.
it's shifting. Like
Yeah.
movie stars aren't nearly as powerful as they were. Its box office isn't as big as what. Like someone like Jimmy Fallon being on TV every night is probably more important now and going viral. And he probably is actually more popular than say like other than like a Leo and a Brad Pitt. Like he's probably more.
Well, he's in like YouTube bits that get 1 billion views.
He's more
so-
influential than like a Chris Pratt or like a movie star, whatever
Yeah.
you consider a movie star. And so like I think it's changed, but at the
That's true.
time it really sort of mattered what Eddie did.
Yeah.
I think. I mean,
Yeah, the older you are, the more importance you put on movie stars.
Exactly. And so, like, yeah, now Eddie's kind of relevant to a certain demographic. Oh, there we go. Did you bring in more?
I think that's it for now. I can get more warm ones. Do you have 2?
No.
This is my second.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Did you get a second one?
Oh, Shane cracked mine. Did you
Sorry.
Did you
Yeah, that
crush
was
through 2 already?
Yeah.
He's drinking on a
First
bite.
one you crushed was mine.
Mike, that's for you. You didn't let me finish.
Oh, you opened it for me. Thank you. No, go ahead. It's okay.
No,
It's
no,
okay.
I'm not getting sloshed.
No, we'll split this one, Jane. Because I shouldn't.
Yeah, you have this, and Max and I will split this
Yeah,
one.
there you go.
Okay,
Perfect.
this is so fun, guys.
This is great. All right, let's get to the next subject.
Is that like so embarrassing to me to say what I just said about Eddie Murphy? I'm gonna cut
No,
this.
No.
Are people gonna rip me on
you
Twitter?
cut everything you
Not
said.
at all. Actually, one of the things I actually really enjoy about the different generations here is it's like Bill Simmons talks about this a lot on his show. It's like to his kids, Adam Sandler is only known as like a guy who makes goofball family comedies, where to our generation, he's known as something entirely different. So it's like, yeah, I think it's an
This is
interesting perspective.
for me, like Eddie Murphy. I think a lot of people, anyone my age, would know him as like the Nutty Professor, or like that's like the era where I should really know Eddie Murphy. But it's because like I grew up with Mike, who was a massive SNL fan. Like it's like I knew Eddie Murphy because him and his friends watched Raw and Delirious, where I probably wouldn't know Eddie Murphy if it wasn't. For
I
that.
only know him from
like
Bowfinger.
for that
Seriously.
stuff.
I'm not
I know.
kidding.
I know. Like Nutty Professors, where anyone my age would know him as the Nutty Professor, and like Hercules.
Yeah. I've never seen either of those 2 stand-up episodes you mentioned, and I think it's because like, are they on Netflix?
Nope.
Probably not, because they're probably too risque at this point. And so accessibility is half of it. Like if they were on Netflix, I probably would have watched them, but they're
Do you
not.
have a DVD player?
I have a Bluray player. Those play DVDs. So I
Yeah, it could work.
What was Eddie Murphy's other movie with the Boys to Men song in the soundtrack? It was a great movie.
Boomerang?
Boomerang, yeah, I remember being very
So one of them is?
attracted to the girl in Boomerang. I can't remember who it was, but I remember that movie being on TV. and
Yeah,
being
that was like
hello.
his sexy movie.
Also, do you guys
Yeah,
know
yeah.
how many kids he has?
He has a lot, right?
5, I believe.
He has a kid with Scary
No,
Spice.
He has like 13.
Whoa.
He has a
One
child
of
with
them
Mel
Scary
B as well.
Spice.
Yeah, yeah.
his kid is Scary Spice.
No, he has a kid with.
Yeah, no,
Scary
I'm
Spice.
kidding.
Oh.
Yeah, he has many children.
It's funny when he mentioned that on Comedians in Cars. He's like, my house is kind of like all the kids just come to my place, but it's like it's a lot of kids. Big house.
I'm sure he's got a lot of space. So shall we move on? So I guess the whole reason to bring this up is we're excited for this appearance if he does make it on
I'm
SNL.
fascinated. I can't wait. I'm
Yeah.
so excited to watch it.
All right, and don't you cut anything, Erica. Like Max said, you represent your point of view from your age
Yeah,
group.
we're
and-
trying to get like the college kids in on this podcast. So,
I think a lot of people of my demographic do listen.
well, there you go.
I think.
Awesome.
Well,
Yeah,
people
so listeners,
check out
let us
Eddie.
know if you know
Great.
who the fuck Eddie Murphy is, and we'll do a poll. Yeah.
And now, what are we going to? This would
Shane's
normally be
segment.
Shane's surprise question, but I think we're gonna. What Shane, set it up, buddy.
We're gonna take callers.
Okay.
So somehow, inexplicably, I don't know, I stumbled across our Gmail account. I just typed in gmail.com, and one day Mike on Much's Gmail popped up on my computer. I don't know why. I don't know the password to this account. Maybe
We don't let Shane know the password.
I think it's like. Oh wait, cut that.
Beep that out. That would be
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Point is,
We can't keep that either.
Why?
People will be able to figure
Oh.
it out. Just keep
We'll
beeping.
beep,
Every
yeah.
time he talks, just
Sorry.
beep it as he's giving away
I had a
all
lot
the
of Blue
yeah.
Lobster today. But somehow, anyway, long and the short of it is, I got into this Gmail account, and I noticed that we had some sponsorship opportunities,
Yep.
and fans were sending in voice notes to us. So I'm going to get to those voice notes.
Let's play the voice notes and we'll answer
Okay.
questions.
This is a prime example of I think this was my idea to send in a voice note, and then I just
looking for advice.
and I just did not follow up on it. Just an
All right.
idea guide, but I didn't get into the weeds.
You're not
So this person's name is Caitlin Lease. I'm going to guess it's a woman.
Shane, in the last episode of the pod, you made it seem as though you're someone whose anxiety forces you to think about worst case scenarios to be prepared for any possible outcome, especially the negative ones. I'm 2/3 of the way through completing my master's degree, but find that this same type of anxiety is actually holding me back. Constantly feeling like an imposter with my own looming fear of failure is keeping me from being confident in my ability to get shit done. As a creative and fellow anxious person, I assume that self-doubt may sometimes get in the way of your creativity. What things do you find helpful in overcoming this anxiety-stricken paralysis?
Okay.
First of all,
reading.
this
Yeah,
person
well,
she,
no,
she-
reading.
she should be a voiceover actress.
that voice is incredible.
Here's what I'm going to say. You can tell this is a person riddled with anxiety, and how I can tell is that was so planned. She clearly typed that out.
Yeah.
Probably practiced it.
She delivered the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, delivered
That
it.
sounded like an episode of Serial.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. And that is people with anxiety. That's our superpower.
Mm.
Is our over planning and worry that things are going to go bad.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really do things off the cuff too much.
Yeah.
We over plan, and we're either underachievers or overachievers.
Mm.
So if you're going to do something, usually you do it right if you have extreme anxiety. So that's what I would say. I would say continue to question yourself, and I would, because that's how we kind of get stuff done. We kind of keep whittling and whittling and whittling until we're like, okay, now this.
But
is...
at a certain point, it becomes unhealthy, though. That's the
I
thing
think
that
there's a hindrance
you're
at times.
battling.
No,
with.
no, it definitely is a hindrance. But that's what I'm saying. You can use it to your advantage. Like
You totally can. Lauren is similar to this way. She over prepares for everything. She thinks she's going to fail every exam, that she's never going to get a job, despite the fact she's only got 99% on every single exam she's written since she was 4 years old.
Right.
And but the trick with
Some
her,
heavy exams for 4-year-olds.
no, it's true. but the thing with her is like, how do you? That's still a painful way to live your life. So how do you live your life in slightly less pain with the realization that you are over preparing to a degree that's probably unnecessary?
well, I don't know that answer, man.
Well, no, it's a great point, because it's like, is the successful outcome of what you're having anxiety about worth the pain of going through? Like, is there a way to ease the anxiety, even if it means the results aren't as good? Because a happier life might not be like the goal achievement oriented. I don't know.
I don't know. I think if you live with anything long enough, you grow to not like it, but you get comfortable with it. Like, I'm comfortable now being an anxious person.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen up close that like sort of your anxiety and sort of like the way that you attack problems and sort of things you want to accomplish is so sort of anxiety ridden and like focused that it's resulted in sort of good things for you.
Yeah.
But was it pleasant to go through?
No, but now I'm so comfortable in always having this veil of anxiety covering me. I've learned how to harness it and use it to my advantage. So it's like a story like the Jamaica thing. I stress a little bit too much over telling a story like that thing. But then you come to me and you say, oh, Shane's such a great storyteller.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm so bad, because I know if I don't plan, it's going to just go horribly. Whereas you can probably knock a 7 out of 10 story every single time you come through, which is why you would never plan for it because you're like, it's going to be okay. Maybe it'll be an 8, maybe it'll be a 6. Who gives a shit, right? Whereas I'm going to try to provide an 8 every time.
Yeah.
So I look at it as a superpower in a way.
No, and it is a superpower, and I'd say similar to Lauren. I think like the fact that she overprepares has made her such a great, hardworking student, and she's gonna be a great nurse. But if you want a piece of practical advice, what was her name? Caitlin.
Yeah.
Is that I think it's important to get out of your own head and just get reminders from people that it's okay. Like your baseline knowledge, your baseline work ethic is enough. So it's like if you can try your best not to over catastrophize the situation, that'll be helpful. And I only say that because Lauren has told me that. She's like, I'm really glad you're around, Max, just to tell me that things are going to be okay because it actually makes me feel a little better. So
Yeah. On that note, try to remind yourself like the big picture. Like you're doing your master's. That's incredible. Like hardly anybody gets there. You clearly have been doing so many things right. You can do it. You know what I mean? Big picture. Just like remind yourself that. Where you're at. What's so funny, Greg?
No, that was a great point, Erica. Well,
No, it was great. It was just I just like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it
if
was
you
like-
could
it
have
was-
seen Erica deliver that speech, it was very empowering.
I think
Blue Lobster's deep, bro.
it's great.
it's also fun. The dynamic here is funny because Greg is Erica's boss, so Greg's just like rolling his eyes at Erica's amazing, impassioned speech.
I was loving it.
Yeah,
It's
okay,
good.
Did you feel inspired by that, Greg?
I did. Yeah. No.
She's going to make you a better employee.
Yeah.
Shane,
This whole time I thought I was the boss. But
Where would you say, like, if you're a very anxious person, where would you say that Max and I stack up on the anxious scale comparatively
question.
to you?
What's the least anxious you could possibly be?
Like a 0.
Max is a 0.
So where would you be, 0 to 10?
I would be, if I'm being honest, at this point, I would bump myself down a notch. I would say previously it was probably an 8.5 to a 9. I would say now I'm a 7.5. And I would say Mike is a good level 4.
I'd say that sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Greg, what do you think you are? You have a unique
I
kind
think
of
Greg's
anxiety.
a little closer to Shane.
yeah.
Greg's gotten way less anxious though.
Yeah, I've
way,
gotten
way,
better.
way less.
I've worked on it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm probably like in like the 5. Can get up to a 6. You know.
I'd say you're a
sometimes.
5.5. That's going to be my guess.
Yeah, I'd say I'm in.
Eric-
I'd say if I
Erica?
didn't have Ashley, though, I'd be like a 3. Ashley just takes all my anxiety.
That's a great point. That is a great point.
It's the best. Like
Everybody
anything
had
that I used to
Ashley.
stress out about, I'm just like, Ashley, you deal with it. I'm going to go for lunch, and it's fine.
Shane, you're like you having it come down a bit. Do you think it is related to having a family, like a wife and a kid, and support that way, or?
Well, that can add to the anxiety. Especially that wife.
Actually, pre-wedding, he was down to a 6.
No, I guess
He was never healthier, happier.
a big part of my life, honestly, though, I was like, oh, if I don't get a job. I had this idea I was
Yeah.
never going to get a job or a girlfriend or anything. So once I got a job, I was like, that reduced a bunch of anxiety for me. You get to a certain point of...
But even that is like super anxiety for the first year. It's the
Of
worst,
course,
'cause
that's what
you're
I mean.
"Ah."
Like, I'm 10 years deep into like
Now you're-
a
yeah.
fairly good career. So
Absolutely.
that helped a lot. Erica, what are you?
I feel like I'm pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a lot
Well,
of
you're in that.
anxiety.
You're in that.
I feel like you hide it well though. I wouldn't.
Really?
I wouldn't guess it. Yeah.
You're at that age where, like, if you are an anxious person, this is where it's going to be the peak.
Yeah, I think it's peaking out pretty hard.
So
Not gonna lie.
let's hear a rating out of 10. What do you got there?
Probably like a 7 on average. 8.
Okay.
8 on bad days. 9 when I'm hungover.
Oh yeah, hungover, you just question everything.
Yeah.
We want to go to the next
Yeah,
one.
let's go to the next
Let's
one.
do it.
Hey, Pod Fam. My name is Ivana. I'm from Toronto. And here's my predicament. My predicament is I am stuck in a job that I really don't want to be in. They've been really nice to me. They've been very helpful, trying their best to get me ahead in my career. But it's a small company. Where they can take me is only so far. And I've basically maximized as much as I can do without literally being the boss around here. This is the first job that I got right out of university. A young, naive 23-year-old that just really wanted a full-time job and needed those benefits because did not want to pay another $400 to the dentist for cleaning. But now I mean, like I said, I've maxed out the time that I've been here. And my issue is I don't like change. And the people here are so great that I'm stuck between staying because I like the people here so much, or leaving, for my own personal benefits and my own career growth. Obviously, I know what I should do, but I am stuck. It's more emotional than it is practical at this point. Because, like I said, I do like everyone here, and I just feel loyalty towards them, and I don't want to break that with them. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for everything you guys do and for putting up all those great pods. I enjoyed all the Raptor stuff because I'm a big Raptor fan. So keep up the good work, boys and girls. Thank you.
What was the question? I got lost.
She feels like she's gone as far as she can go to her job, and she feels like she needs a change, but doesn't know how to do it because she doesn't like change. That's the predicament.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people face that. I mean, listen, change is hard. And there's a famous quote from a movie called The Weatherman with Nicolas Cage and Michael Caine. I'm not going to do the voice.
Do the voice.
But Michael Caine, Nicolas Cage is his son, and he goes to his dad.
Did you ever realize that the easy thing and the hard thing is the same thing?
Well, this is the thing.
Is that what she said?
Mike's
Yeah,
done
so
this
that's-
at every pub in the city.
So that's
This
one.
device.
That wasn't the quote, whatever that was. And I don't even know what accent that was.
That was
but
close to the quote.
It was close. He essentially says, I'm not going to do the voice, but he basically says,
voice.
it's Michael Caine. Have you ever noticed that the hard thing to do and the right thing to do are usually the same thing?
There you go.
So that's
We're way up, Maxie Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, what did you say? I don't know what you said, but
shit.
anyway,
It was close.
So the saying, if my accent was a little too thick for you guys to understand, it's have you ever noticed that the hard thing to do and the right thing to do are usually the same thing? Only you know if leaving that job and taking a chance is worth the potential unemployment, or the classic like grass is always greener. The devil, maybe the job you're not feeling stimulated, but if you're making the right amount of money and you're somewhat happy. It's hard to give real advice. I mean, the inspirational thing's always like chase your dreams, go try and get something else. But you really have to take a sober look at like, is this doing it for me right now? And if it's not, only you know the answer of whether or not to leave.
Go ahead, Shane.
I was just gonna say this sounds like a young person.
She's 23, right? Did she say that on the thing?
That's when she started.
Oh, she started.
Okay, I bet you
She's done everything in the company. The last thing is to be the boss. There's nowhere for her to go or grow.
Yeah.
She's a young person. I'm just gonna take a leap
Yeah.
and guess she doesn't have children. I would say take the risk. It's you rarely regret it at this age. You're not risking the mortgage. You're not putting anyone in jeopardy by taking the job, like your lifestyle or whatever. So I would say always just leave if you're of a certain age, like 26 and under.
I'd also say more the concern was her letting down the company, right? Would you guys get that? Or do you think it was equal parts letting down the company and the benefits she has of the job?
Well, I think it's less letting down the company, and you hate looking that boss in the face. Like,
Sure.
I remember I had to quit a job at like a Value Village like type job. It's called Talese. It's called Talese, but the boss was like so upset that I was.
But here's
leaving.
the thing. I get that sometimes the boss is pissed off and that it creates an annoyance for the boss for the next couple of days of sorting out who's going to replace you. But I'd also say that people just place way too much weight in like their own narrative and like what other people think of them. No, I've really come to a realization is no one gives a shit. People are like, oh, I'm going to miss work, blah, blah. It's like, oh, so-and-so's not in today. Whatever. It's like people think way too hard. Obviously, if it becomes a pattern of behavior where like this person we can't rely on because they're never around, that's a different story. But I just say that it's like anything, the story you paint in your mind that it's like people will be devastated and the company will fall apart and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, that's not the case. And I say that like I tell myself that all the time. I tell that to anybody who's working any job is no one gives a fuck.
I see. I used to try to like have that be like my mantra, like, oh, I'm just being that way. But honestly, when I was trying to quit Talese, the guy was like, honestly, this ruins me. He's like, we had you as the voice because I was the voice on the Talese recordings.
Sure.
And he's like, can you just work one shift a week?
Sure, but then they got over it and Talese is still around.
They found another voice.
Yeah.
I know, but it was just very, very hard.
Yeah, if your boss is a competent boss, they go, oh, you know what? This happens all the time. Employees leave the job. It's my job to find their replacement. So it's just like, I'd say to this person, just leave. It'll be a shitty maybe conversation, and then they'll get on with it. Everybody just gets on with their fucking life. I say this to artists all the time. It's like no one gives a shit. Just fucking go do your thing.
People tend to be far more concerned about their own situation than even like if you're going through a moment of embarrassment or there's gossip or whatever. It's like think about the way that you consume other people's sort of situations. You hear it, you go, oh, interesting, and then you move on. You don't think about it. No. And this happens in every facet of life. Honestly, when people pass away, when life events happen, it's like people are only concerned about their own shit. And so like you should, I guess, operate from that point of view as well, and don't be too concerned about what people think, because really they're just going to go home and make their dinner.
And by the way, I'll say this: I think the thing that keeps society intact is people do care. Is like the fact that people are concerned about other people's feelings. I think that's what allows us all to operate and coexist. But I also just say that like if you're the reason for sticking in this job that you don't even like is that you're worried you're going to hurt some feelings or whatever, it's like who cares? They're going to find somebody else. All right, next one.
Right. This is our last question. We're wrapping. We've gone long today, man.
Yeah, it's been. Yeah.
Oh, it's long.
Oh, it's long.
Hey now, Adam Joshua here. I am on the cusp of fulfilling my dreams. What do I do to make my dreams come true?
Okay, so that was the opposite of the last one. Yeah, a short one. Whew. He's on the cusp of making his dreams come true.
No details there.
No, we need to know
that's
context.
shit. I don't know if I like that
So
one.
what does he do to make his dreams come true? How can we give him advice if we don't know what
is
he's
there anything else
towards it? That's literally it. So.
No, I clearly didn't listen to these before. I
like you went in fresh. Is there?
I got a question.
Okay.
Oh,
okay. We're gonna give
I need some advice.
Greg Veerman from
Joshua,
Hamilton,
we got
Ontario.
nothing for you.
Sorry, Josh.
No, let me get into this. Okay, so I have this friend, and he sent me a skit, and I didn't really like it, right? So I tell him like, you know what, it's not for me. I just don't like the skit. And what does he do? He's like, oh, you're stupid. You're an idiot.
I didn't say any of that.
Yeah. He's like, you're dumb. You don't get good comedy. You and my sister are the same.
No.
And it's like,
here's what offends me.
Context
Here's
to
what
listeners.
offends me here, Greg.
Okay.
Can we give
By the
context?
way, this is like a drunken bar room fight. This, but they're both two blue lobsters.
I will say
deep,
this.
Like, fuck you.
I'm
buddy.
3 blue lobsters.
The listeners right now are 100% getting exactly what it is like with these two fucking guys. I've been doing this for a decade now. But essentially, Shane had found a skit from years ago that was done by the guy Tim Robinson, who now does I Think You Should Leave on Netflix.
I gotta watch that one.
He sent the skit to a bunch of people. It went to my brother, who is considered in our group like an arbiter of good taste when it comes to music, fashion, and comedy. And I guess Greg thought the skit was mediocre. Would that be accurate?
yeah, I didn't laugh. It was well done, but I just didn't
He
laugh.
sent this to Shane while Shane was in Jamaica, and I guess unfold it now, fellas.
Well, Shane attacked me.
I didn't attack you, and here's why I'm offended. Because you were telling everyone I was attacking you, but I was just saying you and my sister have the same sense of humor.
Yeah, and that's a personal attack. Like
What?
It's like, listen,
My
I love
sister
Tiff.
listens
Tiff's
to
great.
this podcast.
No, Tiff's great. I love her, but she wouldn't like, you wouldn't show her a skit you made to be like, is this good or not? You know?
What her favorite movies? Jack and Jill, the Adam Sandler flop. One of your favorite movies.
It's
Greg,
not
apparently.
one of my favorite movies. I said it
Stuber.
was
She
funny.
messaged me after
Stuber's
Stuber.
hilarious.
After Stuber came out, she's like, "You have to see this again." Like a 24% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, but it's funny. Have you seen it?
No. Have you seen Dark Knight? Also
movie?
one of Tiff's favorite movies with
One
Martin
of her favorite
Lawrence.
comedies? Oh, I thought you meant like the Dark Knight.
No, sorry, Black Knight. Sorry, two very different critically.
Doesn't she have Galaxy Quest as well?
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, I've never seen that movie, but
All I was saying was,
but all I'm saying is like it's okay if I didn't find it funny. You don't have to tell me that. You don't have to go all like Trump and be like, you're dumb, you're an idiot.
that's extreme.
Well,
I
that's
wasn't
exactly
like
what
Trump.
happened. I could
Did you
read the
tell him he
text.
was dumb?
No, I never said he was dumb. All I said is, oh, like this is funny. You and my sister have the same sense of humor, and you got very offended by that.
The way we're gonna end this is we're just gonna fade them out and put the music up.
No. But you. No, but what did you say at one point? Fuck, I'm forgetting. No, what did you say?
I don't know. I was just like, sorry, man, I don't like it. Let me live my life. Leave me alone. And you just kept going and going and going.
No. Here's your whole point of the comedic bit was you're like, I could see the turn.
No, that wasn't my
Anyone
point. I was
could
like,
see the
I
turn.
said, I was like, obviously you saw it coming a million miles away. I just didn't think it was funny. Yeah.
And then I sent it to everyone possible. Like I didn't just send it to you. I sent it to
know.
a bunch of people. And then I started screen
And then you
grabbing.
started, you're sending screen grabs of everyone telling you that it's amazing.
And then I was just saying other people feel the same way I do
Yeah.
to make me not feel crazy because I used to think back in the day we were on the same page.
yeah. And then I was like, well, I'm glad you got the validation you seeked.
No, and then you tried to get mean, and you're like, "Oh, Shane, you're such a genius," and what'd you say? "Oh, you're such a genius in everything you
I was
think."
like, yeah, you're a genius. You have great taste.
Yeah.
And you said you're neither of those things.
No, I didn't say that. I said you're the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. And then you said, like, as proven 15 years ago when you couldn't write a skit.
Well, because 15 years ago, if this isn't faded out, 15 years, 17 years ago, Greg Veerman thought he was funnier than a lot of skits on TV. He goes, I could top that. I could top that. So then I'm like, Greg, why didn't you write a skit? You're like, maybe I will. I'm like, maybe you should. You're like, maybe I will. And then he's like, all right, I will. But August 15th came around. I was like, time tick tock, time's up. And he's like, I couldn't do it. It actually is very hard to write a skit.
Yeah, it's hard to write a skit, but I still know it's good.
Yeah.
And what's
yeah.
bad, it's like there's movie critics. I mean, Roger Ebert's a bad example because
Roger Ebert directed a movie.
I know.
Wrote a
but
movie.
Wrote a movie.
He directed.
No, he didn't direct. I think he
Oh, I
wrote.
thought
He
he
wrote Valley of the
co-wrote
Dolls.
it,
Oh.
Anyway, felt personally attacked.
Okay, but let's resolve this. You guys good now? What's the deal?
Well,
you guys have been doing
I
this
kept
for
hearing
years.
through the grapevine. Mike would come up to me and be like, "Oh, I heard you were sending screen grabs."
Yeah, I had to vent.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is driving me nuts.
See, I just took it as you and I were having a nice combo.
Oh, nice. You consider that a nice
well,
combo?
text can take things out of context.
Oh, okay. So all the, like you're done.
So
you're
I
an
was
idiot,
being
yeah.
very calm.
Oh yeah.
And like you don't know this, but I was for all those texts, I was stuck on a balcony in Jamaica. I had nothing else to do. Nothing else worked besides text. I had no multimedia. So all right, that's all I need. Or however you want to
I
end
hate
it.
when I'm on vacation and I don't have multimedia. Does your resort have multimedia? Is this your
We have
five-star-
singular media. I need multi, damn it. Just one? All right.
That's it.
Wow.
Mike on Much can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Mike on Much. You can subscribe to the show on any platform that has podcasts. Spotify, do it.